This podcast, Depraved Heart Murder, The Tupelo Presleys, is a creation of Southern Fried Chicky Productions, LLC, and was produced in Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi. The material presented in this podcast is for general information purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast interviews do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Southern Fried Chicky Productions, LLC, or Sun Bear Studio, LLC.
Hey y'all, this is Christy McBrayer. I'm the principal member of Southern Fried Chicky Productions, LLC, and your podcast host. This podcast represents the culmination of my 20-year obsession with this fascinating story that occurred in my Mississippi hometown. I hope you enjoy Depraved Heart Murder, The Tupelo Presleys. Last but not least,
oh boy,
Jada.
Okay.
The Beth Dutton.
Yes. Yes.
The original Beth.
I think I'd put my money on Jada. Known Jada, knew her when she was playing softball. He had 3 kids, and they hung around just like mine do. I mean, they hung around up here, and you knew them. You watched them grow up. And there was a side of Jada that was very tomboyish and tough, like her dad. I mean, fell into that category. And, you know, we had several run-ins with her, and, you know, she made some choices that I'm sure she regrets, you know, wishing that it wasn't going on, but, you know, you can't control your children.
I did tell him to kiss my ass. But, I mean, he's like, no, you just can't have an attitude. You're going to have to act like this, you know. And I'm like, if you think I'm going to get up there and sugarcoat something or lie, I'm not. It's not going to happen. And he's like, okay, well, just don't be so raw and don't act like you're, you know. And he said, you know, your life's on the line here, Jada. So he was really being a good person.
Yeah.
He was really good to me. I cannot lie about that.
Yeah. In our last episode of Depraved Heart Murder, The Tupelo Presleys, we talked with the daughter of Slain Lee County Sheriff Jada Presley after I met her for the first time while picking her up from the penitentiary. That notorious bar fight at JR's Lounge that caused Jada 2 mistrials and a year in Lee County Jail led to her pleading guilty to the felony charge of assault of an officer. That biting incident of the leg of Officer Jimmy Cotton McCoy over 20 years prior continued to loom like an ominous dark cloud, which interfered with her employment as a nail technician and, of course, receiving more severe sentences for Mickey Mouse law entanglements like domestic property disputes and drug possession charges. This is why she landed in prison again. So in the second pickup with her mother Charlene in the winter of 2019, I decided to ask her to meet me the next day at the pun intended scene of the crime, JR's Lounge, as it was called in 2002. At this interview, it was called the Double Barrel, but just an aside, it is currently just a rundown vacant building. But by this time, I felt like we knew each other a little bit better and could talk a little more extensively about the life-changing events of that night. So did they ever have any pictures? Because I tried to do some looking on this and I couldn't find it. Did they have any photographs of his bite on his thigh?
They did. When we finally came to trial, there were some pictures. And the pictures were, I don't really even know what part of the thigh he was accusing me of biting. But the pictures just showed, like, the skin area, like some pants down here in a shirt or something, I don't know, but, it was like a little line, like a gash, you know, in his leg, and, I raised 5 kids myself, for over an 8-year period, you know, when my brother died, and, I saw bite marks all the time, and bite mark is real distinctive, there's every tooth print in somebody when they get bit real hard, and he didn't have that. Which they said it was because of his polyester or whatever those pants are made out of their uniforms, that probably kept the bite marks from showing. But I really don't think that would stop it. I don't think you could even bite through, jeans and it would still show teeth prints.
And why do you think, since you had known Cotton your entire life, and I believe, Charlene, your mother told me that they knew each other for years and years.
Yes, and they're still friends. And I don't really have any hard feelings towards Mr. McCoy. I think that he was put in a position where it was kind of that, you pat my back, I pat your back kind of thing. He had known them for years, all the nights. And I'm not going to say he was just all out trying to protect Mike, but they saw what he did to me in that parking lot, and they did not arrest him. They said they were out there after they got me put in the squad car, but he never came to the jail. So when I got out of jail, bonded out, I had to call the Tupelo police chief and ask him, did y'all arrest him? And if you didn't, I want to know why. Because he put his hands on me to begin with. He put his hands on me and then ended up beating me like this. Why did y'all not arrest him?
What was the answer?
Well, I don't know. I'll have to check with the officers, that were there at the scene. Well, it's just always a rat race trying to find out what to do. Well, he said, Jada, you can press charges on him now while you're up here. So I had the pictures, and he could see me, and he said, he did that to you? And I said, yes. I had broke ribs. They handcuffed me and laid me face down on the gravel out there. And he kicked me with his boots on. Kicked me in my head and in my ribs and my legs with his boots on. I was like a dog. He kicked me in my face and my mouth. And the law saw him do that. And they never did arrest him.
But arrested you?
No. Well, the law says that they did. Actually, the Tupelo Police Force did not pull up until after they got me on the ground, and shortly after Mike did that to me. Okay, because I remember when I went out from him kicking me in the head, there wasn't no law there. The only law that was in this building was Cotton Court, and they were calling him from the back here. He was back here where and he was headed up there. But the whole bar was going crazy because of what was going on. They were ready to fight. They were ready to fight him. They still to this day, some of them would fight him if they seen him, just because of what he did to me.
And so being here now is weird, I'm sure.
It is. It is. We were sitting, right over in that area right there was where the bar went around like this and come out to where that is now. Well, John Knight, which is a dear friend of mine, Mike's husband, that's Fred Knight's son, and that's JR's nephew, I believe. I think that's the way it goes, but he always worked up behind the bar, moving the ice around, and, just helping out. And I knew him personally, so when we got here that night, we ordered some drinks. We were all dancing out here, and I kept having to watch my purse because of all that money. I probably should have just locked it up in my truck, but I was kind of scared to do that too. I don't know why. I felt like I needed to have it on me. But Deanna, another girl that had come in with us, there was 4 of us. Her ex was sitting at the bar up there on one of them stools, and he was about lit. And he was arguing with his new girlfriend, and she says, she's like, hey, y'all, well, he smarted something off to her, and there it goes, And his new girlfriend was like, how do you deal with him, And she was like, I don't. She said, I don't take nothing off of him. You sit up here and take that off. You just went to yeah. Well, I was like, Deanna, come on. Twice I tried to go up there and try to just kind of break that little racket up. Well, it wasn't happening. Not with Chris. He was a little drunk. But she wasn't going back down either, so they ended up taking him out. So I was sitting here with Amber at this table, and I said, Amber, I don't know if they're going to bring Deanna back in or let her come back in after a little bit, or what's going to happen. I may need to go out there and just try to, diffuse the situation, because she rode with us. I can't just leave her out there. And she said, okay. I said, look, don't leave my purse. So she picked my purse up, she sat in her lap. And I said, I'll be right back. Well, when I turned around and headed down that way from the bar towards the door, John met me kind of halfway. He had a big cooler of ice in his hand. I said, John, can you find out if they're going to let my friend Deanna back in here? He said, is that the ones I just took out? I said, yeah. because she rode with me, and I kind of didn't know if I needed to get my stuff and, get her and we leave or what. I mean, if she's not coming back in, if they won't let her back in, then I'll go. Tell her I'll go. He said, well, let me throw this ice in the cooler up here, and I'll go out there and check. And I said, well, I'm sitting right here at this table. Well, about that time, somebody grabbed me from behind. Just grabbed me out of nowhere. Stuck my elbows together. And I had on a tank top and a skirt and some sandals. And, he stuck my elbows together. Man, I've been in arguments with my two older brothers, but, nobody's ever just snatched me up like that, And I was like, I couldn't even see his face. And he was walking me towards the front door. He said, no, she's not coming back in here, and you're leaving too. Well, when we got closer to JR was standing up there taking money, at the front. Well, he looked at Michael and he said, no, now, just let her go. And he said, no. And he's arguing with me. I still ain't seen this man from behind, just behind me. I was just like, why is he holding me like this? It was hurting. I said, you hurt me. And I got up to the front door, and JR said, Michael, now let her go. You got the wrong one. Let her go. And all the way to the door, he was talking about my dad. Well, I didn't really know what to take of that at first. And then I got up and I realized JR knew him. So he said, let her go. And you better let her go now. I'm telling you, you're going to let her go. And he said, no, she's leaving here. And he said, no. And I said, yeah. I said, look. And I was wiggling, the more I wiggled, the tighter he got. And he said, let her go, Mike. So he finally let her go because these men had jumped up that were in the tables down there by the door. I said, hey, man, what are you doing to her? So, he was like, it's just going to get bad. Don't do this, Mike. I'm begging you not to do this. And he said, you let me take care of this. And I said, blah, 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 hold up. I don't even know what this is about. But I'll leave here, JR, and I won't never come back in here, and I won't never spend another dime in here. I said, I don't know who this is, and I looked at him, face then. And he had a security shirt. No, he didn't have a security shirt. He just had regular clothes on. He had his hair pulled back in a ponytail, and he had big glasses. That's all I can remember. And I said, I won't never come back in here. And I said, and I don't know who you are or what problem you have with my daddy, but don't you ever put your hands on me like that again. I said, my own brothers don't even touch me like that. And I said, you just, over excessively put your hands on me. And I take that offensively. And he's like, what are you going to do about it, bitch? And I said, excuse me? And when I said that, he grabbed me by my throat and slammed me up against the glass. Right there, at the front door. And he had me 2 foot up off the ground with my feet. So, JR is like, Michael, please stop. I'm begging you to stop. And I was just at that point, I had a hold of his hand, but he was choking me. Well, the bar started acting ignorant. All the men were screaming and hollering. They were, all the bouncers had been come up there in between them and me and Michael, and they're like, let her go, man, you better let her go. He let me go. When my feet touched the ground, I swung on him, and I hit him as hard as I could hit. I've never hit nobody that hard. But I swung on him with my fist. I tried to knock him out. That's how mad I was. And I was kind of in fear of my life at that point. I didn't care what the problem was. Then he had been across the line. All I could think was I just blacked out, really. So when I swung on him and hit him, it knocked him, And then he finally kind of got at itself, and he looked at me and he gritted his teeth, and he grabbed me, and he run me out the door and hit that brick wall. There was that little wall there, and he run me down that brick wall. And when we got to the where the wall ended, he drove me across the ground, stood me up on the glass that's like this, and started choking me. Well, he was doing that when some of the other people come out the door. Well, I didn't know this, but during my second trial, they let it be known, somebody called and let it be known that the cameras at the Huddle House next door videoed every bit of that. So this whole theory of me whooping all of them and leaving them in a pile was blown out of the water then. And Sharon Aycock had, already agreed to allow cameras in the courtroom for the first time in the history of Lake County.
Now, let me explain that reference that Jada just made about her trial being the historic first live feed in Lee County. It was like the O.J. trial, with cameras in the courtroom. But this was not a murder trial. It was about a bar fight with a 24-year-old female defendant. Was it because she was the sheriff's daughter? Was it because she was a Presley? Or maybe both? I asked current Lee County Sheriff Jim Johnson his opinion.
I can tell you this because I've done this 20 years on the political side of it. You know, people say, well, you know, here the sheriff is, he goes into a store and, you know, he doesn't have to pay for his drink, or, you know, here the sheriff is, he gets to park here, or here the sheriff, you know, there are appreciative moments that the position does.
Sure.
It does that, you know, you're not being privileged or special, but it's just the way that people respect your position, and these are the things that happens. There's also a flip side of that. If you or your family does something that any other family member would do, you can bet you're going to make the news and they're not.
And Sharon Aycock had, you know, already agreed to allow cameras in the courtroom for the first time in the history of Lee County. So, I mean, she gets pretty upset when this video has been mentioned, but it was never put in Martha's discovery as evidence. They never did mark it as discovery. So she said, they've got a video? And Jason said yes. Well, she brought the statement in, and David Daniels and the other ones that wanted to prosecute me, they come in there, and this is all in Sharon Aycock's office, and she said, there's a video of this. And it wasn't marked in discovery. And they said, well, we don't know where it's at. You know, she said, you got 5 minutes to find it. So she made them go look for it, and they come back.
They did find it.
Yes, they had to. You know, Jason knew it was evidence. They just didn't mark it.
You're attorney.
Right. Someone had called Jason right before my second trial and told him. I really wish we'd have had it during the first trial, but I mean, we didn't know about it. We didn't know anything about it, but they did. They showed the whole thing. So, I mean, as far as Cotton McCoy went, I mean, they couldn't find me guilty of that. I mean, they said I would cuss this one and slap that one, and, you know, pretty much made out like I left all the bouncers and all the cops in just a big old pile, whooped all their butts. You know, I kicked ass and took names. So, I mean, I was like, and I mean, Jason was like, this is hilarious. I mean, it really is. You know, he said, y'all, I've known this girl all my life. I've never provoked her or never, you know, done anything for her to ever want to even try to hit me. But, you know, you grabbing her by the throat, by her arms to begin with. Even if he is a security officer or bouncer, he's not to put his hands on women. You can hold a woman back, you know, from hitting you or something, but you cannot pick up a woman. I mean, you tell them to leave. If you got to physically remove them, you have to call the police. You know, he didn't have the authority to do that to him.
Do you think he had a vendetta against your father, Harold?
Well, I didn't know what his problem was. I didn't know. You know, still didn't. I still was in utter shock because by then I was you couldn't believe all the stuff that went through the press. You know, it was like, so Mama, when I get, you know, bonded out behind Mama, she's like, Jada, she said, what did this guy look like? And I told her. She said, I think I know him. And she dug every box she had. And every box Daddy had up in his attic. Because, you know, he hadn't been dead very long. So she comes in there, and finally, after like 4 days, she throws this big old pile of papers down at me. And she said, is that him? And it was on the front page. And I said, that's him. She said, your daddy busted him. Your daddy busted him a couple of years ago. And I don't really know how his sentencing went, but that's why he's got such ill will towards you. I was talking about your daddy. But she said just recently he got some more trouble because a few weeks ago he beat up his baby's mama and put her in the hospital real bad.
That's
I said, so he's, yeah, he's got some anger issues, And my daddy had told me though, he told me he knew, when I went through my divorce that, 1 or 2 nights a week, well, it was like one night, Wednesday nights was ladies' night. And I didn't have my son those nights. He would go down to his daddy's and, his people on Wednesday nights. So, this was something we had done since high school, and we just kind of kept it going for a long time. He said to me one day, this was right before he got killed, he said, Jada, he said, you dress up and look so pretty, you go out, and he said, but you ain't gonna find you a good man tomorrow. And I said, what makes you think I'm looking for a man? And he said, well, you ain't looking for a woman, are you? I said, well, no, but I'm just saying. He said, I just want you to know that, and I said, well, you used to run at the bars, you're a good man. And I said, but, I understand what you're saying. He said, well, there's one place I wish you just kind of stay out of. And he said, because I don't want something to happen and it end up, costing me my job if somebody does something to you out of the way or something. And I said, what are you talking about, Daddy? He said, well, it's just an older group of people, and some of the group that hangs out there is just, that older group, and some of them's been in trouble before, and, some of them probably don't like me, and I don't want you to run into somebody in there that don't like me, and then, something happen, and then I'll either go to prison for killing them or, lose my job as sheriff because, I handle it the wrong way. Just don't push me to that, And I said, well, I'm not promising you, I won't go back in there, but it was so ironic that this was the first time I had come back in here since we had buried my daddy. And I remember coming when I parked that night at the side of the building. I thought, Daddy told me to stay out of here. I thought it, and when it all happened, I was sitting in the jail cell. I was like, he told me. And I was sitting in his jail. I started crying. I was like, okay. My friend Amber, she said that she wouldn't even mind out. They didn't even, she was charged with something, disorderly conduct or something, but she ended up being the one that bit Cotton McCoy. And she, of course, wasn't going to mention it then because they'd have done her the same way they did me. Her daddy's a preacher. And, my daddy was the sheriff, so you can imagine we weren't bad girls. We were just,
normal young women having a good time.
But, they'd have done her the same way, in the media. Well, she thought that. And I told her when I did that year in the county jail, they got me the maximum sentence on a misdemeanor charge. Trying to make an example out of me. So I did a whole year in Lee County Jail. And, she came to me the day I got out. She drove to my house. She came to see me. I said, I heard you were doing some stuff that ain't, not you, Amber. She started crying. She said, Jay, I got something to tell you. And she says, eat me alive. And I said, what? And she said, I'm the one that bit him that night. And she said, and I didn't say, and I knew Amber was a biter. Because we had actually been in Hog Hill before. And there was Dunkin' Booth, all this stuff out in the middle of this field with these motorcycles and stuff. If y'all know anything about, the bikes, about Hog Hill. But we were out there one night and this woman, big woman, got into our little argument, it's like sisters and brothers. You can argue, but nobody else can get in there. Well, Amber was like, would you shut up? Ain't nobody even talking to you. Well, she popped Amber. Big girl. She hit her one time, slid her across the ground. So, when that whole fight was over with, I ended up with, trying to get Amber in the car. We were in a convertible. But I ended up with a bite mark on my leg. And I was like, this woman bit me. Well, I finally found out where she was from. She's from Smithville, and I knew her brother. And I said, your sister bit me. He said, my sister? My sister not bite. I said, she's a big old girl to be biting folks, She slid that girl all the way across the ground. But, I can't believe she bit me. He said, I don't think that was my sister, Jada, that bit you. So we're going down the road, and Amber's just smiling away, a few days later. And she raises her head up laughing, and her tooth was kind of turned in a little. I looked at my leg. I was like, girl, you were the one that bit me. And she said, what? I said, you bit me. You're the one that bit me. She said, why do you say that? I said, that's your tooth. You hold your head up, you know. She's like, I was like, Amber, that is your crooked tooth right there.
Do you talk to Amber anymore?
No, I hadn't. Ever since she told me that, she cried and cried and was still on the porch, you know. And I said, you know, Amber, you know, I can't say that I don't love you and I'm not your friend, you know, because, you know, but I don't even know how to feel about this right now. I really don't. I just did a year in jail over it. Mm-hmm. And I've been through, I mean, almost 3 trials. My first one, I mean, I had just given birth to my middle child, and they had to stop trial like every 2 to 3 hours, let me breastfeed. I mean, and I said, so I'm a little upset right this minute. But I said, you know, I don't want you carrying this burden around no more. I mean, if that's what was causing you to do this stuff while I was locked up, then, I mean, you know, forget it. Let's just try to put it behind us. But, I mean, you know, I can't say I'm going to call you tomorrow, but I'll call you some night soon. You know,
Kind of had never happened.
yeah, I have. I've talked to her a few times. But, you know, it's just like, how are you doing? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's good of you to forgive that.
I had to. It took me a little while, but I knew I couldn't. I think things happen for a reason, and God allows things to happen. You know, and it's just, that's the way the ball rolls sometimes, and you got to forgive people, or you won't be forgiven. You know, for some of the things you've done to people. So I don't want to. And then, you know, you hurt yourself when you don't forgive. I'm a real forgiving person. I mean, I am, and you know, they could. You know, I think between the two of us, I handled it way better than she could. But I wonder if she's still biting people.
Bringing back Victor Fleetis, our legal expert, on Jada's 3 trials and banishment. Let's talk about Jada.
I think another larger-than-life personality.
Another larger than life, for sure. We know there were 3 trials for the assault of the bar fight of her biting police officer Cotton McCoy at JR's Lounge. 2 mistrials. What are your thoughts on 3 trials for this bar fight and biting an officer?
Looking at it from the outside, it seemed a lot to me. I have tried cases. I have had mistrials in cases. And as a general rule, a mistrial usually leads to a resolution of the case, because usually jurors are interviewed. Sometimes the courts will ask for a count of the division of the jurors to get a feel for, is it 6-6? Is it 8-4 to convict or acquit? Is it 8-4 to acquit and convict? And that information, that data, is processed by the attorneys on both sides and the clients and the families or the victims, right? The complainants. Because remember, until there's a verdict, the victim is a bit premature in a lot of cases, other than homicides as a general rule. Because the whole purpose of the trial is to determine, is this an issue where a law was broken or was it not? So,
and you know, it's interesting because we even have interviews there with Jada, and she and Charlene will tell you that Cotton McCoy, they've known him forever, all their life. She's known him all her life. And it's just interesting. She's got no hard feelings against him, as far as we know. She says so. And you just go, why did this go so far?
There was history. All of these individuals had
Sure.
history with each other. Their father was the sheriff. He had been involved in law enforcement the better part of his life. He was very well thought of. And you wonder why it got to the point it did, or why it had to play out the way it did. And part of it, in my opinion, uninformed opinion, looking from the outside in, is it had a lot to do with the last name of the defendant. It probably had a lot to do with the name of the complainant or the victim. There probably was some amount of desire, intent to move this prosecution more vigorously than if it had been somebody else. I can't say that with any certainty, but 3 trials for a felony charge that carries a maximum of 5 years. And when you're trying that 3 times, you're not trying more serious felonies in that court term.
That's why I asked you that question.
You're deferring other cases that, and after a mistrial, how was the information not parsed to where either side couldn't just get it resolved on some term? It was a fracas at JR's, which was not uncommon.
Was not uncommon.
It was not uncommon. It was an
an
occurrence.
And she even said herself in one of the interviews, she goes, I don't know, I guess it was because of who I am, and I guess maybe some of them were kind of humiliated.
Jada was banished from Northeast Mississippi. Completely banished.
As I have seen banishments in the past, the specific banishment would have been you are banished from being found in the 1st Judicial District, which would have been the range of authority of the district attorney's office, which encompasses 7 counties. Tishomingo, Alcorn, Prentiss, Itawamba, Monroe, Pontotoc, and Lee. So it would have been a banishment from the 1st Judicial District. And hers is not the only case where I had seen it done. I have seen it in other cases as a sanction for based on a plea. So there was a time when it was very popular. These things kind of come and go, and sort of like a hip prosecutor thing to do for a little while was, you could banish all the crime out of your judicial district, just banish everybody.
That is so fun. When I saw that years ago, I just thought to myself, and again, I didn't go to law school, but I thought, that is so Mississippi. Like, that is so good old boys club. How can that be legal? How can you tell somebody that they can't live in 7 counties? You can't live here.
Well, and that obviously, I think, is by virtue of state laws and norms in other states, it's just not done.
Can't do that. Wouldn't be done in Massachusetts.
But they had the witch trials. They certainly would banish witches at that time, but maybe they've moved beyond it. I don't know we've moved that far.
I don't think we have.
But I would say this, oftentimes you would see it in situations where someone may be offered an alternative between going to jail,
right,
and taking a banishment and probation. And when you look at it in that context, taking a banishment might be the better choice for a defendant.
I would be thrilled.
Are there constitutional concerns? I would say so. There's a legal doctrine that says that the greater includes the lesser. So if you say that the judge or the prosecutor has the authority to put a person in prison, it would necessarily make sense that they have the lesser authority to tell somebody not to be in a particular place for a particular period of time.
Right.
But I'm not sure that it doesn't cross some constitutional norms at the same time.
It just did seem like it's unconstitutional to me, but leave it to good old Mississippi.
Twisted Mayberry, Mississippi.
So now that you're familiar with the story of slain Lee County, Mississippi Sheriff Harold Ray Presley, you've met his widow Charlene, his daughter Jada, and now in our next episode, we will get down to the heart of the matter, the depraved heart of the matter. We will tell you the tragic story of Patrick Presley. Stay tuned.
Made the jailbreak. How much more can these men take?
Depraved Heart Murder, The Tupelo Presleys, was written and directed by Christy McBrayer, produced, edited, mixed, and mastered by Melinda Marsalis in Sun Bear Studio. Original music by Bo Lindsey, Brad Elliott, and Christy McBrayer. Deanna Whaley, Director of Audio. Voice talent, Tom Park, Will Vance, Steve Bass, and Joyce Graddy. Thank you to all of the people who graciously participated in interviews, and a very big thank you to Charlene Presley for allowing us the rights to her story and the use of her source material. Depraved Heart Murder, The Tupelo Presleys, is a Southern Fried Chickie copyrighted work.